Hey geeks, in this video we will see how can we deploy our Spring Boot application on the Docker platform by creating a Docker image. So for that we need to follow some of the basic steps which are mentioned here. I'll be going through each and every steps. So first of all, we should be aware of the prerequisites. So these are the prerequisites. We should be having these two softwares installed on our system. So Docker desktop software will help us to create, install and run the Docker images, and Spring Boot will help us to create a Spring Boot application. I have used Spring Boot to create a very basic Spring Boot application. So if you don't know how to create a Spring Boot application or how to install Spring Boot, so you can go and check in the description. And then we need a Docker account for accessing the contents and the services of the Docker platform. And we need to create a Docker file inside the project root directory, and inside that we will be mentioning these 4 lines which will tell about the dependencies of our Spring Boot application. So the first line is telling about the JDK version that we have used at the time of creating the application, and this is the port number on which the application is running. And we have to mention the jar file name, whatever the jar file name you have given at the time of creating your Spring Boot application. And if you're not sure about your jar file name, you can go inside pom.xml file and you can check this file name tag. There you will get the jar file name, and these are very basic Docker commands that will help us to create and run Docker images. So enough theory guys, let's see the implementation. As you all can see, I have opened my Eclipse Spring Tool suite, and in the last video we have created a very simple application named with first_application, which was simply printing this string, hello, this is our first Spring Boot application. So now let's see how can we create Docker file. So right click on the project and go to new and search for file. Click on file and name this file as Docker file. See, the name should be exactly as I have written. There should not be any space or underscore, and there should not be extension like .exe or .txt. So now I will click on finish. This will create a Docker file which will look different than all other files inside this project. You can see the difference. Now let's write the code inside it. So here is the code. We have to just copy it and paste it here. So now, depending upon the JDK that you are using for your project, as you can see I am using the JDK version 11. You can find it out from here, JRE system library, and you can change it according to your project. And the port number will be 8080 for your project also. And if you want to change it, you can change it in the pom.xml, and here you have to provide the jar file name, and you can find the jar file name in pom.xml. Inside file name you can get the jar file name. I have provided the jar file name as first-app. Now let's go inside Docker file. I will paste the jar file name with the extension .jar. I will copy the same here and here. We'll remove the square bracket. Now we have to save this Docker file using Ctrl S. Now we have to open Docker desktop software. So click on search and search for Docker. So here is Docker desktop. Click on it and it will take a minute to open up. So this is the Docker software, and click on images, and here you will see the number of images that you have created. Now go back to the Eclipse and let's find out the location of this project. So click on properties and this is the location of the project directory, and just copy this. Now open Windows PowerShell to run the Docker commands. Search for power and run as administrator. Click yes, and this will open Windows PowerShell. Now we have to move inside the project directory. Use cd and paste the address that you have copied here, and I will use double quotes because I have a space in between Pratyush and Singh. So let's enter. Now we are inside our project directory, that is first application. Now we are ready to run the Docker commands. So let's see what are the Docker commands. So this Docker command will help us to run and build the Docker image. So just paste it here, and this will take a few minutes to upload and create the Docker image on the Docker platform. So as you can see, the message as finished, that means your Docker image has been created. So let's go back to the Docker desktop software, and here is your Docker image, which is first-app.jar, and this is the image ID, and it is around 677 MBs. Now let's run the next command. So this is the command which will help us to run the Docker image. So let's go to the Windows PowerShell and enter the command. So inside Docker image we have our jar file. So the whole Spring Boot application is running on the Docker platform. And now let's search for the IP address on which the Docker is running on your system. So search for cmd, open this and run this command ipconfig. So let's check the IP address. So here you have to search for VM network adapter vmnet1, and here you have to copy the IP address. Copy this and save it somewhere. This is the IP address on which the Docker is running on my machine, and this is the URL using which we will be running the Docker image. So let's understand the URL. So instead of localhost, we are using the IP address of Docker, and instead of the port number 8080, we are using the Docker port number, that is 9090, and this is the default port number for Docker, and rest employee and message will remain the same. So let's copy this URL and open the browser and paste the URL here and click enter. So as we have seen that this is printing the message as hello, this is our first Spring Boot application. So that means we have successfully deployed our Spring Boot application on the Docker platform. So that's it for this video, guys. See you in the next video, guys. Till then, stay safe and keep learning. Thank you.